So I will hand it over to Connor. Thanks, Ibrahim, for joining us. And Connor, it's you. So Connor Svensson of Web3 Labs, take it away.
Well, thank you, James. I will just make sure that everyone can see my screen properly. Right, can you see the presentation there?
Yep, we can see it, or I can see it, so I'm sure they can as well. All
Wonderful.
right, thank you.
Okay. So there will be I know that there's the opportunity to ask questions interactively as well, but I'll make sure there's time at the end for a Q&A as well. So I'm here today to talk about Epirius Explorer, but I wanted to start by just talking about what are block explorers? Why do we need them? Certainly one of the things that is thrown around quite a lot with block explorers is that they're the search engines of Web3. I'm sure many people here have worked with Etherscan and maybe some of the other different platforms out there, but they kind of use it to locate information about public blockchain that resides on public blockchains. And so they're quite kind of core components, but then we see them as kind of an emerging landscape as well at Web3 Labs. So in terms of why you actually need them, they are kind of like the default proof point of some sort of activity having taken place on the blockchain. This information is available, via the nodes on the blockchain, but typically that involves connecting via a terminal window, bringing up lots of hexadecimal and so on. And block explorers provide like a nice visual experience for people to try and make sense of what's going on there. I say try because I still think it's complex. The default information that's presented to people, it takes a while to actually understand what on earth a transaction hash is, a block hash, and so on and so forth. The blockchain nodes themselves, which make up the sort of pieces of the network, are not really suitable for this process because in Ethereum's case, they're designed for execution of the bytecode that's been created, that's written into smart contracts. They're there to process transactions and create or mine blocks on the actual blockchain. In Ethereum's case, it was based on Bitcoin. They use this API in there, so certainly in the the existing Ethereum clients anyway, called JSON RPC, which is a somewhat sort of limited API for interacting with these. This is something that is being remedied with respect to the work that's happening with the transition to proof of stake with the new clients that are coming along with, but however, it's still kind of stuck in some of this legacy stuff too. The other thing, though, that block explorers are really good for is monitoring and reporting, be that real time, where you can actually plug into them and get notifications in real time about things that are happening on the blockchain, but also ad hoc as well. Because if you're running any serious application, it could be one that's running in a public domain, or this could be in a private blockchain. The point is that there's information you need to extract out of it, because if there's real value being exchanged, you need to make sure that there's nothing being lost in the process. Okay, so the current trends with block explorers, it is this idea, I think, of them being considered the search engines of Web3. They architecturally, they're not really written in a way that's kind of true to Web3 ideas. It's more kind of focused on Web2. I think if you look at the main public blockchain explorers, you'll typically see that they're deployed as fairly standard web applications. They're run by a single company. There's a single URL there, and that's really where everyone goes. I think a good way to a good example of this is, say, if you're on Coinbase and you transfer assets to another wallet, you're given a transaction hash. That transaction hash points to Etherscan. If Etherscan's down, imagine what that means for people who are using Coinbase. If they want proof of the transactions, would they question whether they're going through or not? These are some of the things that come up there. But more generally, and this is kind of because of the nature of block explorers right now, the information contained within is public, it's open, and it's anonymous insofar as you don't really have these strong identity models attached to data that resides on public blockchains. But within the enterprise space, and that's what we're here to talk about more generally with respect to the conference here today, these things don't really sit that well with it for obvious reasons on the last point. The landscape is evolving, and this is something that we're going to be talking a bit more about in the panel I'm on later on today. But there is a sort of gradual transition happening from private permission networks to public permissionless networks. And exactly, this is reflected in the fact that organizations are encountering, there are a lot of challenges associated with spinning up private permission blockchains and actually governing them at a scale where you've got lots of enterprises working with them. You can think of the public permissionless networks as utilities, much like the World Wide Web was considered early on the internet, that anyone can access them. And that's a nice kind of standardization layer that you have there. Also, for businesses to be really embracing Web3, they need to be able to augment the data that's contained within Web3 applications to make it more business-centric. And this sort of enrichment is the sort of, and integrating it almost with some of the internal systems is another sweet spot for blockchain explorers. And so what we will see over time is more sort of bespoke, but also integrated block explorers that better serve the needs of organizations. And exactly what the future holds there, I'm going to save until the end of this presentation. So I'm going to talk a little bit now just about Epirius Explorer. Epirius Explorer is one of 2 products that Web3 Labs has. The other piece we do is strategic Web3 consultancy, and we do deliver off the back of that. But our 2 products, Web3J, the JVM and Android integration library for Ethereum, is an open source product that we maintain just freely for the wider community. Epirius Explorer is a commercial blockchain explorer that we have a number of users spread between enterprise as well as companies and protocols that are launching their own networks. But fundamentally, it's a block explorer. I'm sure many of you know what that means as we've been talking about it. And the way we come at it, though, with Epirius is we think of it more as a sort of SaaS friendly product, insofar as we don't believe in running sort of a single instance that everyone can use. We think in terms of supporting organizations or companies or individuals who want their own block explorer and streamlining that whole process for deployment. I'm going to go into a lot more detail about its actual features and functionality, but it also has things beyond the actual UI, like an API backend service and a number of different deployment options there. The landing page is the dashboard where you get like a nice summary of the transaction volumes in there. We know it scales. I mean, this screenshot here, for instance, we've got over 200 million transactions in this instance of Epirius. I'm decided against risking the demo gods today, and I've just got slides which kind of show the various screenshots. But so we can actually, if you reach out to me, we can give you a live demo of one that, so you can see that it comfortably supports these sorts of transaction volumes. But you get these nice aggregated metrics around number of transactions during set periods of times, breakdowns of the different token types that have been deployed to the network. And this is over, like I say, you can see that over the last 24 hours, the last day, the last year, and so on and so forth. You have lots of details about different tokens that are in the network here. So these screenshots were taken from one of the test nets, but I think a good one to cast your eye on is USDC. So you can see all these different tokens that are available on the network. Then when you sort of go into the token, you can see metrics such as the total supply, the transfers that are taking place with it, the individual transactions, the events being emitted, and so on and so forth. Likewise, you have similar information that's available for the actual contracts themselves that you've deployed on the network too. That you can get the various different metrics on them. You can go in and you can just pull out the information there. As you look on the left side of the screen, it kind of gets increasingly more technical, which is I think speaks to the fact that to work with block explorers and blockchains, there's still a lot of detail that people need to be across. So at the top level, you've got your high level metrics, but then you get into your tokens and contracts, and then as you go further down, you get into events, transactions, and blocks, and it becomes increasingly more kind of detail orientated. But the tokens and contracts certainly are these sorts of key things that a lot of organizations are going to want to be able to monitor and manage. So again, we can see the events associated with them. One of the other big new features that we've added recently to Epirius is source code verification as well. So what you can do is you can take the source code of your smart contracts, you can upload them to Epirius, And then from there, what it does is it actually verifies that the smart contract code that's running on the blockchain matches the code that's been uploaded. Now, this is an important detail. I won't go into exactly how it works, but Solidity, which people write their smart contracts in, has a compiler feature that enables you to infer when code is running on a blockchain. If you have the matching source code for that, you can get a guaranteed match. So what this enables you to do is look at smart contracts that you have deployed on the blockchain. Say your organization has, for instance, you could have a repository of all the contracts you have, but you don't necessarily want the whole world to have the source code to them. You can upload them into Epirius, and then you get this green tick there that's gives you the guarantee that the contract code that's displayed below is identical to what's actually deployed on the blockchain. And what's nice from here as well, you can browse and see other details like the ABI file and the deployed bytecode. Again, these are more technical pieces of information, but what a big enabler though with this is that it enables you to interact directly with smart contracts. So when a smart contract is deployed on Ethereum, if you want to call a method to read data from that smart contract, or if you want to actually transact with it, you can do that all from within Epirius now. And so if you need to transact, that means you need to use a MetaMask wallet, for instance, to sign into Epirius. And then from there, you can basically invoke a specific interaction and you can get a result and you get the transaction hash off the back of it. Other features in Epirius include details like peer counts as well. Certainly, for if you're running in a more sort of permission network, or if you're an enterprise and you want to restrict exactly what nodes you're speaking to, you might want to have visibility of the nodes that are actually that you're connected to. And again, this is additional information that you won't typically see on other block explorers there. We also have lots of flexibility with the search backend too. If you want to search for contracts, transactions, accounts, tokens by their name, blocks, and so on and so forth, it's all there. And two filters too. So right now, if you want to find contracts that are ERC20, which is a standard, standard compatible, what's called a fungible token, you can find them, or ERC721, either the NFT standard. And we're adding more standards in over time as well, just to make it simpler for people to be able to find certain smart contracts that exhibit specific behaviors that they're interested in. And of course, there's other dates and range metrics there too. We also have a mobile version too. Not that I expect that many of you to be working with it on your mobile. I still think it's quite cool that you can see all of this information in mobile form. There's a open API based backend as well. This is another key feature because, of course, not necessarily everyone wants to do everything via the block explorer. Sometimes people just want to write monitoring processes. We have clients, for instance, who are listening for specific blockchain events, and so they just plug directly into the Epirius backend, and that facilitates that as well. So it just gives some nice flexibility there. And then two, as I touched on earlier, it's customizable. So here we haven't changed the colors, but things like the logos, the actual cryptocurrency that are being used. This is a network that we're working with a client of ours on launching shortly. But the point is that it's very straightforward for us to deploy it at a custom domain, at a custom URL with custom branding as well. So if someone doesn't want it to look like, to say it's an Ethereum blockchain, but it's based on Ethereum technology, then we can do that as well. We have a developer version, which is more for sort of trials and just people to run up locally too. And then some other additional features, including emoji support. So this is like a fun feature. If you have a token where the symbol of the token is an emoji, Epirius will show that for you. And behind the scenes, this Block Explorer API routes, which is more about standardization for Block Explorers, so they can talk to other pieces of Web3 infrastructure, like wallets, more easily. It's enterprise friendly too, and this is quite important. So we support private transactions for Hyperledger Besu and Quorum. And in terms of the deployment options, we're trying to push more and more people towards SaaS now because we have tiered transaction-based pricing. It's the simplest deployment model for everyone. But we also do provide on-prem, and you've got packages in the AWS and Azure marketplace where you can install it from too. So just to round up this part of the presentation, let's talk to the future, because I said earlier on about how this idea of block explorers being the search engines of Web3, and I think that, well, we believe that that is going to change as the technology does become more established and mature. And so when we think about what the future trends are and how these could affect block explorers, one is, of course, it's a multi-chain future. This is something that everyone talks about. Personally, and I'm sure many of you share this view, that Ethereum is likely to remain the dominant blockchain that people build on, and I think of it like a sort of utility and a widely available internet utility in that regard. But the intent anyway is that as you have more and more chains, be that layer 2s or even layer 3s, or just sharding of different Ethereum networks, or more organizations or groups spinning up their own blockchains that kind of function like layer 2s or the higher level abstractions, they're going to all need block explorers, and so there's going to just be more and more need for them as the number of blockchains increases. But we're also going to start seeing more decentralized deployments of them, because that's more speaking to the Web3 ethos, but also as you have more segregation in terms of where the different blockchains are that are being used, just by virtue of that fact, you're not going to have one company sort of serving that up for everyone. There's just going to be lots of deployments there. The notion of privacy, though, is quite an important one, because for enterprise especially, one of the biggest challenges with the public Ethereum network is the lack of privacy and the anonymity that comes with that. And so privacy is going to be, in things like the baseline protocol, for instance, with its usage of zero knowledge proofs, it provides sort of more enterprise grade type privacy. Also, I should say EY's Nightfall project as well. But the point is that they're providing these kind of privacy on top of these blockchain platforms. And so in the same way that most people don't care about the data that's flowing along the internet pipes, I think most people and organizations won't care about the majority of data that's on blockchains. It's only going to be specific sort of attestation type proofs that they're going to care about. And so as a result, I think it's going to be much more selective, the sort of data that's blockchain explorers start to display in the future, because if we're succeeding in the Web3 becoming more ingrained, it's more for this attestation idea, rather than all the data having to be there for people to kind of mine through, because it's complex and the volumes are only going to grow more and more there. So those are kind of where we think the trends are going. If you'd like to learn more about Epirius, you can head to web3labs.com/Epirius-Explorer. You can also follow me on Twitter or reach out to me there. I publish a weekly sort of 1,000-word essay on Web3 and where we're heading to too, that you can subscribe to there, or please feel free to email me. Finally, as well, for those of you who might have caught it at the start, I published a book at the end of last year, the Blockchain Innovators Handbook, which is really a guide to how to really blockchain technology and Web3 technology, but how to approach innovation with it, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't read it, or if you know anyone who would like to, please feel free to recommend it. If you email me directly, I'm more than happy to send you a copy. So make a note of the email address there, and feel free to email me after this if you'd like. Were there any questions? I think we might have a minute.
Yes, you do have a minute, Connor. Great information. So I don't see any in this chat that I'm looking here, because I've got a couple chats going on. Do you see any questions in your chat?
No, I can just see yes on its own.
I see a yes. So Matthew, if Kieran's ready, let me know. But in the meantime, though, we'll fill in until Kieran James Lubin. He's our next speaker, so he can pop in anytime.
I'm here.
Oh, he's here. All right. Well, hey, Connor, Web3 Labs, great to see you again. Great information. Absolutely check out his book. Reach out to him directly, and appreciate all your information, Connor.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right.